Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you this afternoon?
Fair to Midland.
Fair to Midland. There you have it. Actually, Lance, who just had pneumonia not too long ago, now has a cold again. Allergies, which I had absolutely no allergies of any kind at all until I was 39 years old. And then out of nowhere, they're like kicking my ass, which sucks. But the Patriots won the Super Bowl in a manner that was so awesome that I woke my wife up from 2 floors away from a maniacal laugh. So so I'm fine. So I don't know what you have to fall back on, but that's what I have to fall back on.
Love.
Love ain't as real as parades, man. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, we have love parades here in Pittsburgh.
Love parades. There you go. There you go. We've had 10 parades in 15 years. Not so bad. That's more than the 15 years before that. So, and a lot more than the next 15 years too. but we won't think about that. So, today's episode is with 2 of our, well, pretty much all of these are with our knucklehead friends, but these are 2 extra knuckleheads, Dr. David Cutler and not Dr. J.D. Shaw. So we're in a
JD's third appearance on the show?
Something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, he just keeps on popping up. We've never invited him once, actually. He just keeps on showing up.
Well, they saved our biscuits. We had a guest fall through at the last minute, and both those guys were available to talk, and so we really appreciate that. We would never tell them that in person, but they saved us, which was nice of them.
Yep. Yeah, I don't even remember what the specifics were, but I do know that the best excuse we've had for a cancellation, which we already rescheduled because he was on, but was Pat Sheridan. Do you remember what his excuse was? Which was real.
Oh yeah.
But his kid, and the kid is fine. That's why I'm laughing about it now. But his kid got injured in it was a swimming injury. It's like, wait, what? It's like, I think she had like hit her head. I mean, it wasn't funny at the time, but in retrospect, she was totally fine. But I was just, swimming isn't usually a sport that you associate with tons of injuries. So, but then I think about hitting my head at the end of a pool and how I would have to come up for air a good 20 feet away so I didn't hit the wall. I don't think I'd do so hot. So, all right. So before we get to the 2 knuckleheads, which we're in a band with, the Cones and Tones.
Cones and Tones.
There are 3 ways that people can help support the show. One is by going to Patreon. Can you give us the short spiel on that, Lance?
Yes, go to Patreon.
It's patreon.com/
The Brass Junkies.
Mm-hmm.
And is it The Brass Junkies or Brass Junkies?
I don't know.
I should know that before I say it out loud. But if you go to Patreon and you type in The Brass Junkies,
it's the Brass Junkies.
The Brass Junkies.
Mm-hmm.
You can contribute as little as $1 per episode, and we have a couple dozen fantastic patrons who are helping offset the cost of running this show. And actually, we have some cool things planned for those folks. We're going to start having an after show, which is an exclusive for our Patreon patrons at a certain level. You can kind of figure it all out there, but they've been great. And if you want to join them to help financially offset the cost of what we're doing, we'd love to have you participate. You can set a limit on how much you pay per month or per year. You can start and stop at any time if your finances change for whatever reason. And it's just you're going to get a peek behind the scenes of how we make the sausage here.
And also, we're going to wait for a little while until we're in the same place together because we wanted to do it together. But we had promised that when we hit $50 per episode through Patreon, which we have done, thank you everybody, that we're going to do this. It's going to be in April, so it's going to be a little bit of a wait. But Lance and I are posing for photos of both of us holding trumpets. So, and it's going to be kind of like a senior photo, like senior picture trumpet thing. It's going to be very awkward. So, and we are going to come up with one for $75 and one for $100 too. We'll keep you all posted on that. So,
if you have any suggestions, we will we'll listen to them.
Yeah, please do. pedalnotemedia@gmail.com. You can email us. That would, we would love some suggestions. So, let's see. The second way is to leave a review and a rating on iTunes. A number of you have already done that, and that's the best way for people who might type in brass or junkies into iTunes. Searching for a Junkies podcast. Maybe they're really into drugs, and then they decide to become a regular listener and a contributor to us. You never know. And then the weirder things have happened, right? It's show business. And then the third one is share with a friend. If you know someone who might enjoy the podcast, if you know someone who might hate the podcast, a download's a download. Get them to check it out. So. We would like to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And without further ado, we will get right to our interview with two knuckleheads, Dr. David Cutler and almost Dr. J.D. Shaw. And today we are joined, unfortunately, by two clowns. David Cutler, Dr. David Cutler. I don't want to hear from his lawyers. And not quite Dr. J.D. Shaw. Lance, should we tell them the honest reason why they're on?
Yes, absolutely. Because someone had a serious case of gastrointestinal issues, they had to drop out of recording of our show, which that was a joke. And so we thought, who will take the place of someone with gastrointestinal issues than two of our dearest friends, J.D. Shaw and Dr. David Cutler.
Who will almost guaranteed be sitting at home doing nothing.
Don't you think we might cause gastrointestinal issues?
Well, that's true. If you're driving a vehicle right now, please pull over.
It's a little layered. So
now, JD, we have sort of a unique situation here. JD is actually, this is the record for a number of appearances on the Brass Junkies at 3. And
dude, this is like my 52nd
spectrum. What's that?
This is like my 52nd.
That's true. Okay. As a guest.
Oh, got it.
And Dr. David Cutler, this is his first appearance on the Brass Junkies.
First appearance.
How does it feel so far, David? I mean, Dr. David.
I've got some gastrointestinal issues at the moment.
Really? Okay, good. Our work here is done. So the four of us have a project called Cones and Tones, which we will unpack along the way here. We will probably convey 5 to 6 minutes worth of useful content for you over the next hour. And in the remainder of the time, we're going to make fun of one another and tell stories. But if you're a fan of our show, like I said, 42 minutes, then that you've come to grown. Well, you've probably grown a number of times.
Is that alternative time? An hour, 42 minutes?
Hey, that didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. It came from a different guy than I thought it was going to.
Oh, good times. Good times. What a time to be alive.
Let's talk about, actually, JD, would you tell us how it is that we came to meet Dr. David Cutler?
Oh, yeah, that was an interesting story. I remember we were doing a concert with Boston Brass in Pittsburgh, and there happened to be a River City brass concert going on. I believe, you were still playing. No, you weren't playing in the band anymore, right. Playing in River City anymore. And you just said, hey, there's a concert. You guys want to go? And we had a free night, so we did. And we had started the Stan Kenton Christmas Carols project the couple of years before and everything, and we hadn't really dialed in kind of our Stan Kenton, if you will, our regular piano player. And so we went to this concert. Dr. David Cutler was playing as a guest soloist on that concert, and I vividly remember him playing this 20-minute rhapsody on, I believe it was My Funny Valentine. And I remember
3
just
minutes.
watching him.
It
just felt like 20 minutes.
It was preceded by a 20-minute joke that he told from the stage.
Yeah, your 3 minutes or everyone else's 20. Anyway, what I recall was just being absolutely blown away by the things he did with that and the variations he did on that melody, and watching him control the audience. It was, truly amazing just watching the thing just get to this fervor pitch until by the end, the audience was was literally screaming for him. It was so powerful. And I remember Lance was sitting next to me, and I just turned over to him and I said, "That's our Stan Kenton." Mm-hmm. And and so Lance just said to me, he's like, "Well, you want to meet him?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we went backstage.
Let's go find his trainer.
Yeah. And we met, and it was funny because I looked at him and it's like, "You look really familiar." And he looked at me and he says, "You look really familiar." And it turned out we had been at Eastman at the same time and actually been on a Horace Silver recording project. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just like, oh, yeah, I remember you. I guess, at Eastman, the classical side and the jazz side at the time were very, very separate. Was
there a wall between them?
I just kind of,
who paid for it?
Figuratively and literally. Oh, we made Jazz pay for it.
The flute studio paid for it. It's a long story.
But and then he started coming in and playing with Stan Kenton Christmas carols with Boston Brass and everything, and I guess that just started a long time friendship. But I remember that performance just being one of the most tremendous things I'd ever seen.
That's very kind of you, JD.
David, do you remember what you played with did you do the superhero thing? What did you play with River City? Because you did the solo thing that we got to hear as an encore, but what was the piece you did with brass band?
I think I was playing I think I did Rhapsody in Blue, or on that particular, I did a couple of series with them, but I think that one was some Gershwin, something or another. And then, each of the times that they played a show, they would do it in 7 or 8 different venues. Yeah. So what I tried to do was each night, so I played one piece, or I played a couple of pieces, I think, with a group. And then I would do a solo piece, and I tried to go in a very different direction for each of the concerts. So I think that particular event where Boston Brass attended was the My Funny Valentine. But I went in, I played a lot of very different pieces each night. That was always tried to push the group in different directions and surprise them as well as the audience.
That was one of my favorite parts of playing with River City was, like you said, there would be the time that I was in, the 6 years I was in, so 7 concert series per year performed at 8 different venues. So you had an opportunity. I was doing a lot of comedy and was writing songs and doing all sorts of stuff, and you could just try different material out, reorder the material, and get 7 or 8 shots at it. And usually took me, after 5 years, then by about the 3rd time, I felt like I could sort of lock it in, which didn't mean that I wouldn't try different things, but it was just such a great boot camp to just, have that opportunity was huge, as Jeff would say.
It took us a while to make fun of Jeff. It's kind of disappointing.
That's true.
7.5 minutes.
So, David, what were you doing at that time? I don't mean on that. Like, you were in Pittsburgh. Why?
I was teaching at Duquesne University, so that's why I moved to the town. But, as a musician, we all wear many, many hats and do many different types of activities. So, my life then, like my life now, is a combination of playing and composing and writing books and speaking and consulting and running programs and concerts and all kinds of different exciting activities.
Those don't all sound exciting.
And now
you should have been there.
The two of you guys work together at the University of South Carolina.
We do?
There's no real joke there. I just thought I would state the fact.
Don't they both sound thrilled? They both jumped in like, yes, it's an incredible.
The air out of all 4 rooms got sucked out at once. That was kind of cool. Is there something you guys want to tell us?
Yeah.
No, it's been great having JD here. JD, this is what, your 3rd year here?
3rd year, yeah.
3rd year.
And how many years have you been there, David?
This is my 5th year.
5th year. And so, do you guys get to interact? I don't know if "get to" is the right term. Have to? How often do you two work together or interact at USC?
depends, but we're working together on some different, one of the challenges that all music schools are looking at now is how do we make our way into the 21st century and how do we move forward from here? And so one of the projects that was really fun that JD and I worked on was we're actually inventing a new performance degree for undergraduates, which we're calling a Performance Plus degree. And so JD and I were on a team that kind of tried to reimagine what an undergraduate performance degree might look like. And I thought that was a really fun project. I don't know. What was your impression on that?
Oh, yeah. I think it's been a lot of fun. And it's been challenging at the same time, just trying to consider all these different things that go into things, because there's such a hard line kind of tradition of this conservatory education, and just kind of saying, well, with the new paradigm that's going on in how people are supporting themselves as musicians and making their careers, we really need to kind of see about how to better serve them, and at the same time attract a different type of student, that's looking for maybe something more than just the traditional track of a traditional performance track that most schools offer.
Are you able to talk about? I know something like this. There's a process and it goes through various committees and it has to be approved. So I know you're probably, if you're new in the discussion, that means that it's far from being an approved thing. But are you able to talk about either the sorts of questions that you're asking or the ideas that are coming up that are sort of catching your eye or directions that you're thinking about?
In terms of this program?
Yeah, because this sounds like a cool degree program, and I'd be interested to know what sorts of options or directions you're considering.
We're actually pretty far in the process. The degree has been approved, but we just have some features that we're tweaking a little bit. But we start off by asking, what do students need? If you're going to get a bachelor's degree in performance, what kind of skills do you need? What kind of perspectives do you need? What kind of experiences would you need? So we tried to start with the big picture and start with the dream and then work backwards. I think solving this or any other problem, it's important to know what your large scale vision is, but it's also important to know what I call the canvas, the non-negotiables, which are, it's a 4-year degree. We have this many credits, we have this many hours in a day, we have this many, and so we really focused on outcomes for our students. And we decided that, so the way that this degree works, it's called a Performance Plus degree. So students will focus in being really outstanding performers, but also in another area. And the 3 different tracks are in entrepreneurship, technology, or chamber music. So they'll get a deep experience in that secondary area, as well as becoming a great performer. And we wanted to make sure that in the organization of this, that not only was there curricular flexibility and time to focus on these different kinds of aptitudes, but that it was also built into experiences like recitals and juries and the lesson experience and the likes.
Interesting stuff.
You want to go in a different direction there, Andrew? I was going to ask JD about the cones. Let's jump to the cones.
Well, actually, quickly, I wanted to ask each of them what the stupidest thing the other has ever said in a faculty meeting was.
Oh, that's a good one. Remember, it's only an hour-long show. So it's maybe like the most recent thing.
Yeah, the most recent stupid thing, like say within the last week. What's the stupidest thing that each of you said at the last faculty meeting? All right, so Lance, why don't you talk about cones and tones?
So, Mr. Shaw, can you give us an idea of how the cones and tones got started and where it came from?
Well, I think originally it came from that we all wanted to do something together, and not include trumpets. I think that was key. No, it really was. I think, and when we used to do Boston Brass, and we used to do a lot of cool music and stuff, and then there was also kind of a light comedic element to it as well. And so what we wanted to do was develop a show for horn, euphonium, tuba, and piano that was a show that kind of had a narrative within it, but that also had great music that served that narrative. But rather than just it's a recital or it's a comedy act or or it's a skit, it's kind of a big variety show with a whole lot of different things within it. And so we started with that. And it was funny because we actually started with I believe Lance got a concert and he just kind of said, "What can we do?" And then, of course, the craziness started plotting, and we came up with this show. And so we called it Cones and Tones for, of course, the conical nature of the instruments that we play, and tones for the piano
and the shape.
And what?
Depends on his hair that day.
That's true. Hey, by the way, David, your hair looks really good today.
Thank you.
Matches the shirt.
We had a show where
Since it's an audio show, I just shaved it all off. So.
So anyway, we started coming up with the narrative through the thing. And I think the narrative started as basically we are a reunion band from this orchestra that maybe was like 40 or 50 people, and only the four of us agreed to do the reunion band.
Right.
But we have all been different places in our lives. We've all been doing different things. And so David Cutler, he is now a university teacher, and he's kind of the crazy mad scientist professor character. Lance,
that was a real stretch for Cutler.
Lance was a used car salesman, but an aspiring game show host at the same time.
Also not a stretch.
Andrew was a stay-at-home dad who was really into learning new cooking recipes and things like that for his family. And then and my character
that one was off, I guess.
And then my character, I guess, I had been in the witness protection program in Argentina, and nobody really knew what I did in that time from the time that I was in the orchestra. So we kind of used that to develop characters on stage and create a comedic narrative throughout the thing. But all the time, the different musical styles and a lot of different variety of musical styles to put forth that musical narrative.
I want to talk about the programming, but can you back up and talk about Cones of Fury a bit?
Oh, yeah. And so it developed from a group that Sam Plathian and I had done while we were in Las Vegas doing a summer festival. We had been contracted to the Las Vegas youth orchestras had a downturn in enrollment. And so what they wanted to do is have a summer camp just for brass players. And so they had Sam Plathian and I kind of head the thing up, but it was also at the same time they were opening up the new cabaret hall at the Smith Center, which was a new performance venue in Las Vegas. And so they wanted to see if Sam and I could come up with a show to do that. So the show would kind of be at the end of the week, and the whole festival, working with the kids and everything, would lead up to this. So we had a good time developing. We called it Cones of Fury at that time. I don't know why the name kind of came out. I think it was when the Will Ferrell movie Blades of Glory came out or something. Yeah, it had something to do with that. But so I wrote some music for Sam Plathian on tuba and me on horn, but then we brought in a pianist, a drummer, And Sam's theory as well, with a tuba player and a horn player on stage, we can't be the geekiest one on stage, so we brought in an accordion player.
Nice.
And so that was kind of how it started. So we did two summers of that, and had a great time doing that. So we kind of So when we started thinking about this, I started thinking about some of those things that we had done with that, and it just kind of evolved into Cones and Tones.
So was there repertoire? Which, if any, of the repertoire made it over from the Cones of Fury to Cones and Tones?
Actually, some of the Piazzolla tunes that we do to kind of represent my time in the witness protection program in Argentina were from that. I think that was really about it. There were some other things. Maybe the Gottschalk Gallop that we did. Yeah, the Gottschalk Gallops that we opened the show with was something but then expanded it a little bit further when we brought it into Cones and Tones. But I think everything else we just kind of developed.
I think what is the most fun to me is that the development of it is tied to the four of our personalities and interests. And we're talking about it in such a way that we might be giving off the impression that this has been a long-standing thing and that there's, tons of work that we've done, but it's really kind of in its infancy. We've done that one concert. We have a recording session set up for later this spring. So it's kind of interesting to be a part of a group with four very diverse and interesting minds, and sort of try and tailor a thing to it. Well, JD, why don't you unpack the highlights of the rest of the repertoire and why we came to picking the tunes that we picked?
Well,
or not.
No.
Yeah, don't sound so thrilled, dude. I was hoping you'd ask me to do that, Lance.
What a riveting question. I would be more than happy
I'd
to
be
unpack
honored.
that for you after a short nap.
So the repertoire, like as Lance said, was developed through trying to develop the personalities on stage a little bit. And so we did the Piazzolla tunes that were pieces that I had come to know and love during the time of the witness protection program in Argentina. We did a piece, Hungarian Rhapsody, by Brahms, and that was so it's a big tuba solo and everything, but then Lance has these words that go along with it that talk about food. And so that was kind of a premise of
Alan Sherman.
Alan Sherman, that's right. Being a stay-at-home dad and coming up with all these recipes and things like that. With Cutler, it was trying to show his craziness, and that was really nothing more than allowing him some time to do one of those rhapsodic things that he does so well, where he takes a melody that kind of everybody knows and takes it off into different places, and really it's just opening up the show to kind of just see the genius that is Cutler's mind when it comes to the creativity on the piano. And Lance we developed because he, as we talked about, he's an aspiring game show host. So we set up these game shows where we audience participation and things like this. But it's everything, as I said before, from Gottschalk, Johann Sebastian Bach, Piazzolla, Brahms, some swing and jazz in there, and things
Dave
like
Brubeck.
that.
Dave Brubeck, that's right.
Yep.
Dave Brubeck, yep. So,
hey, I might have found us another gig in Colorado.
Oh, there you go.
Huh.
all right. Way to go, Andy.
Coming up on
Thanks.
one per year. That's good. I think we can maintain
Actually,
that.
It's about how much I want to be on the road, actually. So that's perfect.
Right. It was funny. I got this
2 last year.
Yeah, we did
that's
too.
True, we did too. So
Yeah.
we're good for this year.
In Carolina.
We a dear friend of mine is a guy named Roger Weiersberg, who was for a long time the band director at Ovid Elsie Schools, which is about an hour north of Lansing, Michigan. And he is now at what was the school? Saginaw Valley State.
Yes.
And he asked, he said, hey, there's a concert series here that's an endowed series, and they've got a budget, and I want you to come do a show. And I said, do you care what it is? And he said, nope, as long as you're involved. And so I said, wonderful, I have a fantastic thing. And then we went and invented it. But he was very trusting, and couldn't have been a better host. He looks like Santa Claus. No story there either. But I just was very grateful that we had the opportunity to go do that. David, so what's it like playing with three knucklehead brass players?
I try to ignore that aspect of it and focus on the music, but no, it's great to be able to.
Is that what you're doing?
Now we at least know.
It's of course great to be able to work with such great friends and great musicians. One of the things that's really fun about this particular project, and really all the projects that I've done with you, is you guys come from largely a classical music background, and although we play in different genres, a lot of the pieces are written out. There's a piano part that's written out in a lot of JD's arrangements, but my background is pretty equally. It comes from the classical world and the jazz world and the rock world and the world music world, and so many things. And we've created kind of a sound where the notation for the piano part, it's kind of a starting place rather than the ending place. So a lot of times, if you're playing anything, if you're playing Gershwin or you're playing Bach or you're playing Brahms, what's on the page is what you're supposed to play. But I use that kind of as a skeleton, and then try to explode the music and go a little further and say, where would be the next place to take it? And in this group, for some crazy reason, everyone's given kind of permission to do that. And it's exciting to see how can we bring these pieces to the next place to really make it our own. So that's been a really fun aspect of this.
Do you? How much of it? I mean, I guess I'm asking and answering the question. I won't even ask it as a question. My belief is that since there is no paradigm for this, then we can do whatever we want to do. If this was a brass quintet or if this was a piano trio, then there are sort of certain paradigms or ideas of what those quote unquote should do. And since we've gone into uncharted territory, we can just sort of decide, yes, this is exactly what low brass trio and piano sounds like.
And although I would argue that, in any scenario, I know that it's approached that way a lot of the time. But why is it, if you're a string quartet, that you have to approach it in this way that other string quartets play? Or if you're a brass quintet, why do you have to follow a tradition the way that it's been there?
Somebody will hit you.
Yeah, so I mean, there are these expectations, and there's this kind of conventional wisdom that pops up in every kind of community or genre or whatever it is. But then there's an opportunity for anyone, which is you can follow that wisdom, or you can create your own, and you can kind of either rebel against it or challenge it or go in a different direction. So if anyone's listening and you're playing in
what do you mean if anyone's listening? What kind of a
for anybody who is listening?
If anyone's listening.
Hi, Bob.
Jeez.
So, you guys tuba players?
They don't even give it a chance.
For anyone who is listening, I don't think there are these ideas that if you're playing Mozart, all of the notes and all of the rhythms and all of the articulations, all the dynamics really were established by this composer, and who, the notion that composers are these omnipotent beings, and once they put something on a piece of paper, it is sacred until the end of time. As a composer, I love that notion that we can make no mistakes, and our word goes for the next 1,000 years. But as a performer, sometimes I kind of resent that. And I say, is there no room for creativity in what we do? Why, if I feel like playing a different note than the composer did, why are we celebrating only that composer's greatness? Can there be no greatness and creativity and uniqueness that comes from the performers? And I wonder if, I agree with you that because there is no established paradigm for this particular instrumentation, it gives us kind of flexibility to be freer. But if we were playing with an orchestra or with a string trio, I think there is also that choice that you could make.
So let me ask you, let's stay with that thought. So take a piece of this. Okay, there's a softball for David Cutler. Are you ready? So let's say you take a piece like Rhapsody in Blue, which is a cherished part of the canon and is played all the time. What is the benefit to playing it again, quote unquote, right way? Is there a benefit? I know where you have gone with it, which is why I'd like to have you talk about what you did with C Street. But is there value in doing the original thing? And if so, what is that?
Oh, absolutely. There's great value to performing a piece the way that it was intended by the composer, especially if it's a great piece of music. It might be really fun for you to play as a performer, might be thrilling for an audience. And there is value, I think, in recreating a moment from history. It's like going to a museum and observing this art that happened in the past that can be incredibly meaningful and telling about a culture or a human being or art at a given time. So yeah, absolutely, there's great value.
And see, I think one of our problems are as class, quote unquote. I'm going to stop saying quote unquote eventually.
Promise.
Is that we only do that side. We don't cherish the other part, which is what you're talking about. We don't do that nearly often enough. And I had a really great opportunity to see both David and JD on stage at Le Poisson Rouge in New York City about, a year ago, right? 13 months ago, something like that. So can you talk about what it was that you did? And actually, it involved C Street Brass. We had Houchin and Gabe from C Street on a previous episode of the Brass Junkies. But can you talk about what you guys did?
Sure. Well, before I give you the specifics of that, I just wanted to make a kind of metaphor. I mean, if Gershwin, you were talking about Gershwin here. So if Gershwin gave me his house, that'd be
pretty cool.
Sweet.
Really cool, you know? And if he gave me his house, I would be so honored. I would really be excited about the history of it. But I would still probably modernize it a little bit and personalize it to myself, right? I would not try to be Gershwin or to live in that house the way that he did. I would try to make it my own. And I feel the same way with a piece of music. C Street Brass reached out to me a couple of years ago. They were coming to Columbia, and they asked if I wanted to play this piece, Rhapsody in Blue, with them. They'd played it before with some other pianists, and I think they asked me because they knew me, they liked me, they thought I would do a good job with it, and I was local, I was there. So, but I started to think about it, and I thought, well, what could I do with this piece so that they'll never consider playing it with another pianist ever again, right? And then
including you.
Maybe. Then I started to think, what could I do with a piece so that a presenter might never consider hiring any other group to perform it again? And little by little, as so many ideas do, it grew and grew and grew. And the result is what we now call Rhapsody in Purple. But the first thing that I did was I started to rewrite the piano part. So you would still recognize it. It has the same basic sections, but it's more virtuosic than the original. And it goes into more styles. And sometimes I added some, bless you. There was almost a sneeze I could see. So sometimes it would go into...
are you talking to your invisible friend? What are you doing?
I saw Andrew had a voice.
You seem to have allergies today.
He gets pissed when his invisible friend doesn't call him doctor.
That's right. I'm an armadillo.
Which invisible friend?
I have 3 degrees. Please continue.
And we're back. I like the fact that you emphasize, like you say, pianist, because there's 2 ways you can say that word, and I like that you're specifically going for that one. It's the flutist thing.
Emphasizing the P. Is that like building the wall? And sorry. Anyway, continue.
Well, I mean, some people say pianist, some say pianist. It's whatever your preference is. I don't judge. You should go with whichever you prefer.
Alternative pronunciation.
That's right.
So, David, as you were saying, Rhapsody in Purple.
Bless you.
So that was the first part of it. The first part of the vision is I kept they were playing kind of a transcription of the original orchestra part, and I only changed the piano part. But then as I went along, I thought, it might be interesting to push the orchestra part a little bit. And actually, when we started rehearsing it, we were just doing it in the moment. I was just like, try changing this. Can we put this up an octave? Can we make the orchestration a little more extreme, put a little more character into it? But then I was playing this one part that went into kind of like a little gospel. It was a little cadenza, but it went into this gospel area. And one of the guys said, "Hallelujah," just as a joke. And I thought,
was he in the band?
He was that was Houchin. Hallelujah. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. We should go further with that. So pretty soon he's saying hallelujah, and two of the guys are pretending like he's jumping rope, and we're in the gospel church. So I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. So I said, you know what this needs? And this was just kind of a joke. I said, you know what it really needs, though? It would be great if we had some juggling at this moment. At which point Gabe said, you're not going to believe this, but that's my thing. I'm a juggler. I have juggle balls with me right now, but I have never considered combining juggling and music. But those are my two main passions in life.
Dick Naylor.
Right? So,
Dick Naylor, pianist, juggle balls. If you're keeping track at home. Good gravy. Bingo!
Wait, while we're stopped, are gospel churches known for jumping rope?
Aren't they? Yeah. When I think gospel church, I think...
I don't know. I'm Jewish.
No.
All
right, that's on me. Sorry. All right.
That round goes to Cutler.
That round goes to Cutler. That's once in a row.
Again, we're building on things, right? Okay. So now we've got, he's jumping rope, saying hallelujah. We got Gabe is juggling. Then there's one more player there, and he got nothing to do. And I said, it would be really cool at this moment. You should ride a unicycle. But of course, who's got a unicycle? He didn't have that skill set. So I started to think about how can we solve this problem. And I looked around my house, and lo and behold, my daughter, who was 4 years old at the time, had this Disney princess bicycle with training wheels. So the other member, he's like this tall, lanky guy. So at this moment, when we go into this like circus/gospel scene, so he's hallelujah, he's jumping rope, Gabe is juggling, and all of a sudden this tall, lanky guy rides across stage on this Disney princess bicycle. By the way, he totally destroyed the bike, right? I mean, it just is all dented after. But it was a really spectacular moment, especially all the Disney princess decals really enhanced the moment. I think they really captured the essence of what Gershwin was trying to say at that part.
What did your daughter think?
His daughter still hasn't stopped crying from that.
It's been awkward since then. So she ran away and is now living in Swaziland.
If anyone is listening, this is basically every rehearsal/meeting the four of us have.
Exactly. So 30 minutes later. So should we tune?
and then I hire a piano tuner, and it takes another 2 hours.
I was going to say we haven't tuned in ever.
That was good.
Yeah.
We should just let it stay awkwardly quiet for a second.
I was actually thinking, I have a question I thought of, but I'm not going to ask it.
That's just kind of... Yeah.
Judging by...
Do you remember the Grammys? This was probably... They gave a Lifetime Achievement Award to, I think, Ray Charles. And...
Never heard of him.
He was giving his acceptance.
I saw that one,
and they cut him off. Like they gave him the hook. The band started playing. It was super tasteless, and it was live on whatever the channel was. And Billy Joel was up later in the evening, and he starts to play, and then he stops, and he goes, "Valuable advertising dollars running by. Valuable advertising dollars wasted." Valuable. He was just so mad about the Ray Charles thing. He just dead aired the whole, brought the show to a halt as a protest. Yeah, there you go, Billy Joel.
There you go.
Well, if they had to
What's your favorite Billy Joel story, David?
Hey, did you know that there's a banner up in Madison Square Garden commemorating the number of Billy Joel shows at MSG I have not attended?
Really?
Yeah, it's like 57.
Oh.
Wow.
It's impressive.
Good story.
Thanks, man.
So, JD, we're going to record later this spring. What are we going to record? What's the plan?
We're going to record all of the Cones and Tones repertoire.
So, Gottschalk, the Piazzolas, the three preludes, the Gershwin preludes, the Bach inventions.
Yep, the Brubeck
Unsquare Dance
that we were doing. Yep, Unsquare Dance.
That's a cool tune.
I'd even like to get some of get your vocals on the Hungarian Rhapsody on there.
Yeah. Flower Duet.
Flower Duets. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be diverse, and hopefully we can get some good live action video to entertain people with it as well.
Here's a potential direction. What directions that we haven't gone yet, because we've only done 2 shows, where might it be fun for us to go musically or theatrically? We kind of have a show now that is a thing. Where else might it be fun to explore?
As I was looking, I think one of the things when you have a show like that, it's always dependent upon the performance. And you see the things that the audience responds to, and you see different things happen on stage that never happened in rehearsal. And sometimes those things are the guiding lights that say, hey, where can this go? Where could this be a clarified moment? Where could even where you change the storyline of the show a little bit and the narrative, just responding to the audience a little bit and seeing how you can dial it in. I guess, I never consider myself an arranger per se, but I'm a rearranger. I'm constantly trying to rearrange things to work better and serve the purposes for the audience. So I'm not exactly sure what the direction is in terms of next, other than I'm open to seeing what happens, and where the direction might be now could be different 5 years from now when we've done more shows and things like that. To answer your question succinctly, which I should have done in the first place, is I'm not sure.
we don't do succinct on this show. That's not really our thing.
That's not our message.
The most important thing about the show, it is a variety show. And so in terms of variety, we're talking about variety in terms of musical genres, but also in terms of the kind of sound and sight that the audience experiences. One of the other things that I think is really great about this group is it's not just euphonium, tuba, horn, and piano. It really is about 4 individuals and all of the different things they bring to the table. And it might be secondary skills, and it might be personalities and the way that they interact with an audience and the likes. So I think that's the opportunity, is how far can we go in terms of genre, in terms of experience, to create a highly varied show.
Well, and why stop there? Why not in terms of the way we deliver it? Does it have to be what role should or could the internet or online platforms have in the delivery of what it is that we're doing? Where should we be going?
Exactly. And I think one of the things that we talked about having like a 360 camera on stage, that projected images behind us or even on the internet, giving control of those cameras to the audience a little bit. Having more audience interaction. Every concert starts with put away your cell phones. What if there's a concert that's like, don't put away your cell phones, but let's use them to create let's use the cell phone in some fashion. Maybe it's online polls. Maybe it's polling telling you what you want to play next. Maybe it's operating videos that you can watch through social media during the show, live action things that are going on. So the possibilities are endless, and I think the only limitations are the availability of the technology at any particular venue or space that we're at.
And our own imagination.
Yeah, that stuff all sounds so exciting.
Space, why does it always have to be in a concert hall, a recital hall? Is there a better venue that it should be at to do that? I mean, what if it was on the street corner in New York City, and the audience is people walking by, and somehow that's projected online? Who knows?
Cutler's house.
Well, what if the whole thing lives online? I mean, do we have to be in the same place at the same time in order for us to make the kind of art that we want to make?
And if we are, if we integrate technology into it, I think there are not only visual benefits to it, but also potential musical opportunities. So, for example, why couldn't we perform as an octet with the four of us live and the four of us recorded playing along with one another?
Right.
It's kind of crazy when you stop to think about how many assumptions each of us make on so many different levels that we really don't ever question. Not that we consciously think that they're beyond reproach, but just like JD just said, the fact that it's in a concert hall, there's just so many of those things that we just assume because that's the way it's been from fourth grade all the way through until today for 99 or 100% of our performances. And when you kind of break down that barrier, it's like, my God, where do you even start to be able to change things? It's exciting.
So I spent a lot
it's almost overwhelming, the possibilities there. And you start thinking, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. At some point, you go like, okay, we got to do this tomorrow night. So let's figure it out.
So it's interesting. Some people in life don't see any opportunities besides the obvious ones. And then others see opportunities everywhere, but then we have a hard decision of, which one do we actually decide to pursue. One of the innovation techniques that I like to use I call it feature tweaking. And essentially, what you do...
Family show.
Man, the mouth.
Feature tweak.
Is that what they're calling it these days?
I'm scared to Google that. I don't want that in my history.
All right, there. So I won't tell you what it is, but it's
okay. Now you have to.
Yeah. So feature tweaking, it's a 3-step process, but essentially the first step is you determine just categories or elements that will play a role. And then the second step is you identify how is this feature traditionally approached. And then you can go through and change some or all of them, right? So if you're looking at a concert format, you could look, well, what are the general categories? You could talk about the audience, who is in the audience, and how do they sit, and where is the venue, and what happens on stage, and what happens in between pieces, and what happens during intermission and the likes. And you go down and you say, well, here's the normal ways. And then you can, what is a program? How does a program function? And then once you understand how it normally is approached, you could just tweak one or two or all of those features. I've literally done concerts where I've tried to essentially challenge the way just about everything is done in a concert. And it might be a good solution. It might not be, but it can really provide a very, very different kind of experience for the audience.
I just did an image search for feature tweaking, and it wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. But Safe Search was on, so maybe that had something to do with it.
So hey, if anybody's listening and you have like a wish list of either tunes or venues or ways to see this kind of art that these four knuckleheads would put together, send us messages on one of the social media platforms. Send us an email at pedalnotemedia@gmail.com. Just let us know, and we're continuing to turn this thing over and see what we might do with it.
And we are now on Instagram and Twitter as Pray for Jens. Pray the number 4 Jens. So,
do we follow anybody on those?
We follow one person on Instagram, and that is Jens Lindemann. And we follow one person on Twitter, which is Jens Lindemann.
Oh,
how are his chops these days? I know he's having some issues.
Yeah,
Cutler.
Cutler doesn't even know any of this because he's never listened to the podcast because he hates us. Yeah, Cutler. So Jens is obviously going through some really horrible stuff. Now he's trying to figure out whether we're being serious or not. He's kind of in analyze mode, and the odds are that we're not. So can you give any? We actually just had some really good advice from Billy Bergazzi. Just told him to wipe Vaseline and Tabasco on his valve caps and then visualize playing better. that was a good one. So. Cutler, what we've already heard. JD, do you remember what your advice was for him?
For Cutler?
No. Hey, hold on. I'd like to remind you, you don't have tenure yet, so just go be gentle.
He's the best ever.
No, I was trying to think of what your advice was for our dear friend Jens Lindemann.
Jens Lindemann.
I don't remember, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was mean, which is what we were going for. Cutler, Dr. Cutler, what advice would you give to Jens during this time of need?
I mean, it's a complicated answer, and there are many facets, but basically it all boils down to this: eat bran.
So you think he's just a little backed up? That's basically all his problems?
That'll
good.
help. That'll help.
Wow.
A little stopped up.
Before we let you go, Doctor, will you talk about the Savvy Arts Venture Challenge, please?
Absolutely. This is an experiential arts entrepreneurship workshop that I run each June, where Lance serves as the assistant director. That is like no other experience. It's very, very cool. Essentially, people come from all over the world, from a variety of artistic backgrounds and age groups and perspectives. And they work on teams to build an arts-based business from the ground up. It's not businessy. It's, but the point is to help musicians and artists earn more money while increasing the scope of their impact. And we use all of the arts to teach lessons on business and success. And it is a life-transforming experience.
Well done.
Thank you.
It was really beautiful.
That was concise.
That was concise. I was like hanging out.
It's once in a row. I almost made coffee.
If you're interested in finding more, check out the website, which is sc.edu/music/savvy, SAVVY.
We'll stick that in the show notes so you can find it there. It's a fantastic event. Andrew's participated. JD has avoided it like the plague. It's really, it's a great thing.
Good stuff. JD, you got anything to plug?
USB.
Oh,
I got it.
That was horrible. I got it.
Just let it sit there. Let it simmer. Let it simmer.
Glad it wasn't me. All right.
USB. Mini USB or just a regular USB?
What's a mini USB?
Ask Jeff.
You tweak it?
Yeah, you can tweak the features. Have we had an episode yet where we just it just sort of ran out of gas? Speaking of running out of gas, here, I'll tell a quick Boston Brass story, and then that'll take us out.
Awesome.
So one of, it was probably my first year or two in Boston Brass. Andrew and JD and I were driving to Las Vegas or from Las Vegas across the desert. And I was driving and was not paying attention to how much gas we had in the minivan. And did my level best to keep that information to myself for as long as I could. And I was sweating it. And as it turns out, we finally found a gas station. I think there was, do you remember, Andrew, offhand? There was less than a gallon of gas left in the tank.
Way less than a gallon. Yeah, it was something like, this also happened once to JD and I when I was driving. And like you, I was able to keep calm. No, I was completely freaking out. And JD was like, oh, I love it when Hitz freaks out. It's always awesome. And I always like to be as close to him as possible when that happens. Yeah, both times it was like there was like about 5 miles or so left of gas. Yeah, it was, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. David, you got any running out of gas stories? Okay, well, thank you very much.
all that brand.
Episode 52.
There you go. I think it's 53, but whatever.
Pretend sincerity. I really appreciate you guys saving our biscuits today. This was
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I know. I was really glad that you were both available, and I'm glad that I think the Cones and Tones thing is really fun, and I know it's only had some baby steps, but they've been incredibly creative and fun, and I hope we can keep kicking it down the road. So
I think we should take it on the road full time until we hate one another.
So, what, 2 days?
Too late.
That should be the whole experience.
Too late, yeah. That's what would have happened if we had played a third gig in 2016.
The tipping point.
The text message that would have gone into it would have come back blocked. Yeah.
I love you guys so much when I hardly see you.
Yeah, exactly.
We certainly aren't going to give any master classes in efficient rehearsals.
No, that is true. I could play all day.
We could have more done if we weren't actually all in the same room together.
I thought I could maybe get a little squeak out of JD if I threw that one in there. So there you go.
You broke me.
I could play all day. All right. Well, without further ado, Jens, eat some bran. We're praying for you, buddy. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Joey Santillo. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.